From Los Angeles, Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
With me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
And it is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. Cary Harrison with you. Don't forget to get our free newsletter at rethinkingheroes.com, where we're going to be able to provide a lot of extra information that we simply cannot do on the radio. And with the new FCC chair coming in, boy, is it going to be tricky for all of us. We're going to have to start talking in code again, like it's the 1930s. It's going to be weird and woolly. We're going to be opening up the phones, taking your calls on the conspiracy theories you're hearing about or what you think is actually happening. But first, we do have a Hollywood resident named Keith, and he's on with us right now. Cary Harrison with you. And with me is Keith Moulter, who is in Los Angeles also, who has a bit of a harrowing story. We're going to do sort of a short one, but he's going to explain how he escaped. And he's right in Hollywood, which is different from what you watch on TV. This is sort of not that. It's an actual city within the 67 cities of Los Angeles. Everybody sooner or later had to evacuate. And Keith, tell us a little bit about your story. You used a bicycle.
Yeah, I did. I worked for a major grocer, a retailer here in the city, and I was at work, and a boil water. I'm a assistant manager of a produce department, and a boil water notification came over the emergency broadcast system. So I went to go talk to my assistant manager at the store and mentioned that this might not be a good thing to have the store open with, because we do have a deli and all of that kind of. And then, long story short, she had this panic in her eyes, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "My daughter just called. We have to evacuate." I'm like, "Well, where are you?" And then all of a sudden, an evacuation notice came over everybody's phones, which, if you're not familiar with that emergency broadcast system, it's like a symphony of phones all going off at once, and everybody literally stops in place and does this. And I didn't, because I was concerned about my manager. But long story short, we're trying to get her out of there, figure out a way to get her out of there. And one of my teammates comes up and shoves the phone in my face and says, "I think you should see this." And it was my street. And I went, "What?" And I'm like, "I'm out." And I instantly got out, instantly took off and got out. And it was so windy on my bike. I had to bike home. Now, mind you, it's all slightly uphill all the way to my apartment. And I think the thing that jumped out at me the most, that sort of stopped me in my it didn't stop me, but it propelled me and stopped me in my tracks emotionally, was the color of the flames. They were this magenta, purple, pink, bright thing, and the entire hillside was lit up. And I just started pedaling as fast as I could. And I don't know if it's a defense mechanism, but I kind of went into this sort of observational mode at the same time as participating. And I was biking home and came around the last corner to go up the hill to my apartment. And you know that thing in the movies where the streets get really long and you can't go fast enough? It was that, and there were cars everywhere, and gridlock and smoke, and people were walking with suitcases literally in the middle of the street, despondently, kind of walking and turning and walking. Nobody seemed to know where to go. I mean, there was a woman that was coming from the other grocery store towards me with a brown bag, and a bottle of wine in there, and that's all she had. And
That's
I'm like,
kind
okay.
of a normal day in that neighborhood.
Yeah, in Hollywood, yeah. And I'm like, that she's going out the way she wants to go out is what I thought. But getting to my apartment, you got to get in and you got to get out. And I said I would do a go bag, but I didn't have a go bag ready. So I'm packing everything up, and I'm on the phone, and I call my mom, and I'm like, "Mom, I got to get out of here. What am I forgetting?" And we went down the list, and I had everything. And then she's like, "How about your laptop?" And I'm like, "Oh God, yeah." The little things you don't think of.
Right.
Because
we're hearing these stories of everybody trying to figure this out, the go bags, and, take your important documents. And you've actually never in your life thought about, what are my important documents?
Right.
And that would be a passport, birth certificate,
Social Security
Social
card,
Security card, all of those things. We need to
checkbook.
start keeping these together in like a plastic sheath of some sort, and all of that stuff ready to go. So Go Bag is actually a real thing, and you're one of the people that have experienced it. Let's talk a little bit about the air quality, because when things go up in flames, and I'm not talking about the chaparral or the eucalyptus trees, I'm talking about all the houses, all their electronics, cans of Raid, all of that aerosolizes, and everyone is now aware of that. What can you do about that?
Well, they're telling us to wear N92 masks when we go outside. It's so clear. It looks so clear and so beautiful right now that I don't see a lot of people doing it. I do it when I get on my bike and commute back and forth to work. When I'm inside work, I don't have it on. I probably could, not to shame myself, but I could. The part that they're drilling home, at least on the local news, is although you may not see the traditional ozone particulates in the air, the colored smoke, if you will, in the air, it's the invisible stuff that's out there, and that's exactly what you're talking about. The toxins in all the wiring, I mean, these houses are not just wood; they're metal and electronics and like you said, that's so I wear my mask, my N92 mask. That's the best I can do.
So really and thank you for coming on last second like this, but sharing this with everybody. I think now more than ever, we do really have to pay attention to the causes of these things. There are a million conspiracy theories out there.
Well,
10 million, probably by today.
If I could say one thing, that's been the most emotional part for me, is hearing the blame being placed. Hearing certain politicians say, "Well, conditions need to be placed if we give help," when we've provided for other states with an open heart and an open checkbook to make sure everybody gets taken care of. But yet, for some reason, in California, they're saying, "Oh, well, you somehow caused this. You're somehow responsible." I'm 60. I don't look it, but I'm 62 years old. I have grown up out here. I have never, ever seen anything like the wind and what was going on. I've never seen anything like that. And I grew up in fire country up in Ventura County, and I have never seen wind. I have never seen fire do what it did. And I'll stand by the fact that they could have had a fire truck for every single house, and there's no way they could have protected them. Absolutely no way.
I think it's the same.
Global warming we were warned 50 years ago as they were burying President Carter. At the exact same time, this fire breaks out, and it's like he warned us 50 years ago about all this. And that's my little soapbox. But that, and also the love that came in. I was contacted by people that aren't particularly fond of me, and some of them that I'm not fond of them, but they reached out and they cared, and I feel loved. This city is great. This city is in deep pain. It's deep pain, and it's not one group of people like rich people that are affected. It's everybody's affected. Every single person.
Yes, everyone is tethered together. The workplace, people's employment. Your person that works for you might live over here, but you live over there. It's a body. It's actually a body. All the streets are veins and blood vessels. The infrastructure, it's all like one living organ, and it's now been affected. It does tend to bring people together, wake them up maybe for the first time ever after living there, that they are interconnected. We saw this on the East Coast within the last 6 months, 2 Category 4 and 5 hurricanes, 1 week apart, hitting the same spot, same reaction, same response, same new level of awareness. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for talking about this stuff and helping people wrap their heads around it, if they're not in LA, what this is like for you, and wishing you all the best. And I'm glad you got clear skies today. Let's hope they stay that way.
I hope so too. I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to share.
All right. Wonderful. This is why we want to hear your voice. It is happily clearing. Things are under control. And we do stream all over the world. So when people hear Hollywood, they're going to think what they watch on TV, that Tom Cruise is sitting at a sidewalk cafe somewhere in Hollywood. And the last time you drove down Hollywood, when it wasn't recently, back-to-back traffic, people trying to escape, there was no such thing going on. So it's helpful to let people know what it's really like, especially during times when it's real reality. And that's something I want to talk about today is reality, the reality of what this is and the surreality of how everyone is pointing at everyone. Social media, and I said this years ago, and I'm certainly not the only one, social media, it's an entertainment tool. It is. Let's just call it what it is. There is no editor in chief of the internet. There is no editor in chief of Facebook, especially now. What little guardrails there were, for better or for worse, are gone. The only one that still has them is Facebook. If you mention the dreaded C word from what happened back in 2020, you'll just get like a strike and pulled off. So it doesn't really, allow much range of motion on there. All that to say, it is Facebook. It is Twitter. We know who owns Twitter. We know Twitter is more Klan rallies than not Klan rallies. It's nonsense. It's like watching TV as a kid. Maybe there was the news show on Sunday morning, but apart from that and apart from Cronkite, it was entertainment. It was Wild Wild West. It was the Rockford Files. It was Charlie's Angels. It was TV. It's entertainment. Social media is entertainment. So don't go to it to find the news because there is no editor in chief. Yes, okay. Here's the mystique. Here's why it works. It looks like the New York Times. When you go on any social media, it's already pre-built with templates. It's already built to look like a proper newspaper, to look like a real magazine. The only thing that's changing, and anybody can throw in, is the content. And most of us, let's just say you're maybe 20 and under, you've never lived without it. You've never lived without the internet. It doesn't occur to you that there is no difference between the New York Times, whether you love it or not, and that. At least with the New York Times, if someone just made something up and published it, would it be fun around there for a few days? Wouldn't it? If they got caught. And they have gotten caught in the past. Yes, they have. And this is part of how it remains at least somewhat accountable. The internet is not accountable. Social media is not accountable. So any kind of well-crafted argument that looks like it's in the New York Times online, people start to believe it. And so we end up with what are conspiracy theories, right? Conspiracy theories have overwhelmed the simple concept of climate change, something we've been yelling about forever. Social media, even the East Coast politicians, as this guy Keith pointed out, are pointing and saying, we should be raking the woods. That's the problem. Well, we have asked, by the way, Pacific Gas and Electric, we have asked Edison, we have asked them to please pull the vines off your very heavy power lines, and they don't. We're going to get to it. We're working on it. Oh, it's happening, or it has happened. We didn't know. The vendor said they did it. We didn't know, or the vines grew back. And here we are. So climate change is 99% likely because we have seen massive hurricanes. We've seen droughts. We've seen entire repositions of hundreds of millions of people on Earth over the last 10 years from bona fide climate change. But the internet says something different. But is it all completely false? Are people who report things all idiots? No, they're not. You're not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. We are on social media too, but we don't control what's true. Verisimilitude is simply a side effect of a well-published or a well-focused argument. The politicians are pointing to the firemen, who are pointing at the cops, who are pointing at the homeless, who are pointing at the rich, who are pointing at the poor, and it all points to the shadowy world of conspiracy theories about the wildfires blazing through this land. Let me reckon with these tales spun from fog and whispers, unverified, yet enticing to the human heart's love for mystery. First, let's delve into conspiracy theory number one. And we're going to open up the phones in a minute because I want to hear what you're hearing and what you think is going on. You may have been standing next to something that happened that we don't know about, that ABC 7 or whoever didn't report on. It's quite possible. Okay? So, conspiracy theory number one, the world of DEWs or DEWs. Have you heard of these? Directed energy weapons. The exotic imagination that implies lasers from the sky. Call them Jewish lasers if you're Marjorie Taylor Greene. For real. She's been saying it again. Lasers from the sky, akin to war gadgets, meddling where they shouldn't. Now, some claim they have reared their fiery heads and left behind scorched landscapes with suspicious precision. Common sense, unmoved by the flare of dramatics, points to nature's unpredictable hand, doesn't it? Winds and dry brush is more logical culprit, something we've discussed over and over again. Last week, when I didn't even have a voice from sucking in all the particulates, my throat was burnt, and I apologize for the hideous cacophony of the sound of that. Not sounding even like a human voice, but all hands on deck during an emergency, right? So we all show up for each other, and we have in this city. Proponents of this theory of the directed energy weapons, we do have them, by the way. But this is likely not that, unless it can be proved it is. It's still early. But this is conspiracy theory number one, these DEWs, advanced technologies that can create intense heat or energy beams. They point to unusual burn patterns, such as uniformly burned areas suggesting a precise and controlled energy source, burned trees with no apparent ignition source, melted metal and other materials indicating extremely high temperatures. Some theorize that DEWs were used to start or exacerbate these fires, possibly as part of a larger experiment or to achieve a specific goal. That specific goal is undefined, but boy, can your imagination come up with that, what that specific goal might be. In a few minutes, like I said, we're going to open up the phone lines and hear the conspiracy theories that you're hearing about, or if you think some of these are actually true. Let's look at conspiracy theory number two. LA's published Smart City Project. This theory posits that LA's Smart City Project, which aims to integrate technology and data analytics to improve city services, is connected to the wildfires. Many are now claiming, all over the internet again, that the project's infrastructure, such as smart meters and sensors, could be used to start or exacerbate the fires. Data analytics and AI could be used to predict and manipulate the spread of fires. I mean, that part is clearly true. Sure, you could use data analytics and AI to predict that, to hunt for a mole, to count the follicles on your head, or predict the follicles of hair on your head after X amount of years if you have too much DHT. So sure, that part is true. This is why conspiracy theories really work. Enough of it is true. So which part is not? And that's the difficult part, to disprove something when something has already been mostly proved. This is why many of us had to study logic, which I did instead because I can't do math to save my life. But they allowed logic as a mathematical discipline, but you learn about simple syllogisms, if P then Q. Here's another one from LA's it's online, Smart City Project, another conspiracy theory in conspiracy theory number two here. The project's focus on sustainability and environmental monitoring could be a cover for more sinister activities. Well, it could be. It's like walking up to somebody and saying, we know what you did. Yeah, they know what you did. And that person is going to freak out because we don't know if they did or didn't do anything, but they know what they did. And whatever it is, they're ashamed of it. And now they think we all know what they did. And they're going to freak out. So it's the same thing saying the project's focus on sustainability and environmental monitoring could be a cover for more sinister activities. Well, it could be. And we can all make up what those are. We can explain everything. Potholes were never repaired, street lamps. There's the evidence right there. But there is no evidence to suggest that Smart City Project is capable of starting or controlling fires. The project's goals and technologies actually are publicly available, like I said, online. Again, those online are part of an agency, whether you like government or not, but they are vetted and there is accountability if there's anything in there that's wrong, even a spelling error. The rest of the internet is the wild, wild west, baby, and they have just taken all the guardrails off. Experts are confirming that the infrastructure is, in fact, designed for benign purposes. And when I say benign, I'm using that as the adjective. So, not evil purposes. They are literally looking to have energy efficiency and traffic management. This is America's second largest city. It is one of the largest cities in the world. It is one of the only cities without light rail and trams and all of that. It's insane. Like, we wrap our you gotta be kidding. You can't take a choo-choo train to the airport. Nope. Cannot. You can park 6 miles away and take an Uber. I mean, really, it's nuts. Or you could take a bus from downtown. First, get to downtown. That's 2.5 hours. We used to have, if you guys remember the movie, if you haven't ever seen it, Chinatown, it recreated, this is back in the 1970s with Jack Nicholson, recreated what LA looked like in the 1920s. It had the world's finest public transportation, electrified trolleys, all the way in Glendale and Pasadena, in West Hollywood. You could take trolleys and trams from downtown LA all the way to the ocean and sit on the beach and come back for a dime. Took 20 minutes. The tracks are still under Santa Monica Boulevard, especially along where you find Beverly Hills. The problem is re-exposing them is a political problem. So we could re-expose tracks that have long been laid that are still there. They belong to, I think it's called Pacific Energy from 1916, a company no longer in existence, but I'm sure it can be wrangled back, brought easily back into existence. But politically, people don't want the wrong people, or didn't want the wrong people, taking convenient trains into their town and like hanging out or loitering. This may change as we rebuild the city, as we rethink it. Back to this smart city conspiracy theory. The project is capable of starting or controlling fires. Unlikely. The project's goals and technologies are publicly available, like I said, and tens of thousands of people are now saying it's actually a covert pyromaniac. Yes, that the city of Los Angeles put this project together and have executed it, and it's building fires here and there, controlling them, magnifying them, exacerbating it, igniting flames of chaos with each digital pulse, not meant to improve, but incinerate. Like I said, we're going to be taking your calls in just a minute. I'm just going through some of these conspiracy theories. You might have heard of them. You might have heard your own. I do want to hear your reactions and responses. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. Excuse me, I am still coughing. This air is going to take a long time to clear out. If you do have an N95 mask, I know it reminds you of, you know what? I can't say that word because YouTube will give me a strike. And by the way, we are live streaming on YouTube. I'd like you to go there. I'd like you to subscribe to my channel. You could just Google YouTube, Cary Harrison, CaryHarrison. And the reason I say that with such passion is the new FCC chair. Guess what's on the crosshairs? This station is actually listed in Project 2025. Yeah, us and what we do. So anywhere where we can stay connected, stay tethered, find alternatives. If the signal goes out, we can still continue. So I want you to subscribe. YouTube, Cary Harrison, even on X, wherever you want to go with a chip and a signal. Let's stay tethered. Get the newsletter so we can let you know if something happens and where you can go to keep hearing KPFK and what's going on. All hands are on deck. We're going to jump to the phones in just a minute. Let me just fast forward to a couple of more big ones, okay? Conspiracy theory number 3, the specter of the United Nations Agenda 21, the whisper that rattles in certain circles, suggesting a plot to clear our lands for modern utopias. Speculated are the fires as a meddlesome means to push humans towards dense communal habitats. I'm paraphrasing here. The Agenda 21 theory suggests that the wildfires are part of a larger agenda to implement the United Nations Agenda 21, aiming to promote sustainable development. That's it. And reduce urban sprawl. Sounds pretty good. But on the internet, people are saying by the thousands that the fires are being used to clear land for new development projects or high-density housing, force people out of their homes and into more densely populated areas, create a sense of urgency and crisis, allowing for the implementation of Agenda 21's principles. Now, we do see this politically with the incoming administration. Cause a problem, then be the only cure available, period. And so things get done, get enacted. So we see enough real evidence that stuff is doable to make these things believable. We're going to go pause, take a break in just a moment. When we come back, we're going to open up the phones. I'm going to jump way forward. I have like 10 of these things, and they're all fascinating. If you get the newsletter, I will publish every one of them so that you can read them with your own eyes. I'm just going to jump to one where it was true in a different way, but why these things can be believable. This would be conspiracy. Yes. Conspiracy theory number 5, arson by government or corporate agents. This theory posits that the wildfires were intentionally started by government or corporate agents to clear land for development or resource extraction, create a false flag event to justify increased surveillance or control, distract from other news or events, maybe like the president talking about Greenland or rolling in Canada, a NATO partner. Imagine if you invaded Canada, there is no difference between Germany invading Poland or America invading Canada. And now we have NATO, Article 5 would be enacted, and Europe, Germany, even ironically, would have to come and defend Canada from the invading United States, another NATO partner. So it's nonsense and BS, like drag queens in Florida. Meanwhile, you are being charged for rape and molestation. You have 34 felonies. All of this stuff is happening. Nobody's looking because we're so busy talking about Greenland. We did. I admit it. I talked about Greenland. I talk about Canada. I called friends in Canada. What do you think? And meanwhile, all these things are happening in the background. We have guys being put into departments, giant government departments. The hearings are going on. People are not fully paying attention because they're really worried about Canada or drag queens. So these arson by government or corporate agents distract from other news or events. They generate profits for companies involved in firefighting or reconstruction efforts. Now, again, there's enough truth in conspiracy theories to make them theories. They're really hypotheses at best, aren't they? But there's enough truth in them so that it has happened similarly enough, it goes from hypothesis to theory. The causes of wildfires are still under investigation, but experts still attribute them to natural factors like drought, heat, and wind. True. But that's not to say there aren't a million developers and realtors and corporate people who haven't fantasized about opportunity. We only need to look back to Hurricane Katrina, a disaster of epic proportions, a hurricane that ravaged the Gulf Coast, leaving destruction and devastation in its wake. Hurricane Katrina, one of the deadliest and costliest natural disasters in American history, now surpassed in extraordinary numbers by our LA wildfires. But in the aftermath of Katrina, something else unfolded. A story of corruption, of cronyism, of no-bid contracts, and corporate greed. Halliburton, remember that? The energy giant, the company once led by none other than swinging Dick Cheney, the vice president of the United States, Cheney, the man who had once been the CEO of Halliburton, the man who still had ties to the company, even as he served in the Bush administration. That was considered shocking. And today, the president of the United States owns giant hotel chains, sells sneakers, swag, and merch. And his government leader, to shrink the size of government, has contracts woven throughout the same federal government, including NASA, the world's global communication satellite systems, and pretty much everything with a chip and a signal. But back then, it was an obvious and appalling conflict of interest when Halliburton's subsidiary, Kellogg Brown and Root, was awarded a no-bid contract for debris removal and cleanup services in the aftermath of Katrina, a contract worth over $500 million. Not an ordinary contract, a deal that sparked outrage, that sparked controversy, that sparked investigations that revealed the contract was awarded without proper competition without proper transparency. Even the Government Accountability Office, the Congressional Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, they all looked into this deal and they all came to the same conclusion. This was a contract that reeked of favoritism and corruption. The cost overruns, the performance issues, they only added to the scandal. The Pentagon's Inspector General found that Halliburton had overbilled the government by millions, that they had failed to meet their contractual obligations, a deal that smelled of rot and corruption, of corporate greed, a deal that should never be forgotten, a deal that should serve as a reminder of the dangers of no-bid contracts, of cronyism, of corporate influence in government. And now the government has become Mussolini's wet dream. It's truly the perfect intertwining of corporation with government as a single swamp creature with enormous appetites. So as we rebuild, let's keep an eye. We must keep things accountable as we can. We're going to open up the phones in just a second. We're going to find out what you think and take your calls, all right? I want to hear the conspiracy theories that you're hearing and your theories beyond a vicious and tormenting wind having taken down America's second largest city. A fact. But do you think this is merely the result of modern day climate change, as we saw on the East Coast with those double category 4 and 5 hurricanes a week apart? Or do you think there was some sort of accelerant, some sort of extra push or nudge or series of coincidences that created this perfect storm? Your Harrison hotlines are 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Cary Harrison with you, reminding you to sign up for our free newsletter at rethinkingheroes.com. We're going to give you a transcript of not only this show, but all of the other conspiracy theories. You can read and parse them on your own, plus further insights and observations we simply can't do on terrestrial radio while it still exists before our new FCC chairman plops his fanny into the broadcast bulldozer of fun. When you call 818-985-KPFK, press option 1 to jump on the air.
Preventing truth decay.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
We are in complete control.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
And it is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. Cary Harrison with you. Don't forget, we also live stream on YouTube. You can simply Google YouTube, Cary Harrison. Boom, up it comes. You can put your comments in there if you want. We'll key them up over the video. The videos are archived forever. This way, we keep what we do here available for people as long as we are allowed to. It's shocking that in 2025, I would ever have to say that. I remember in 2005 having to say that. We meant it. Back when I was on Air America. And then, of course, Clear Channel found a way to remove the entire network. And there it was, finished forever. And now we have KPFK. We have a bunch of different FMs we're on, music stations, places you sort of wouldn't imagine this kind of content. But there are great people that own independent radio stations all over this country that want to have somebody talking about what's going on. So that's what you are here to do, is call in right now and talk about what's going on. We've opened up the phones at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Taking your calls on what conspiracy theories you have heard, and do you think any of them are true, could be true, or people you know that do believe they are true, and why do they believe they are true? Have you tried to disabuse people of some theories? Do you believe it's climate change? I believe it's climate change. In my heart and soul, believe it's climate change. But is there more? LA is huge, isn't it? It's like a 50-mile long suburb. You can't be in the whole place at the same time. You're either here, and then it's 3 hours to get over there. So you can't really eyewitness every single corner simultaneously. We also know that AI has been used to show that the Hollywood sign was on fire, which it never was. It's fine. It's sweet. It's clean. It's beautiful. It's here to stay. But if you were looking at social media, you would have thought 100%, because it looked so real, that the Hollywood sign was on fire. And when that's gone, well, that's kind of our brand, isn't it? And so people believed it for days. And then finally TV would start showing the sign, do stand-ups in front of it and say, no, it's still here and it's fine. But you wouldn't have known. And if you're not watching TV, you're not paying $150 a month to Spectrum or whatever, or you don't have over-the-air TV anymore because you're modern and you're not watching it, how do you know? Because you're not watching that. You're not watching whatever accountable legacy media we still have, who at least is going to go out there and try to explain it to you. So this is tough. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. When you do call in, press option 1. It shoots you right to the head of the queue so you can get on the air. Again, 818-985-KPFK. And while the phones are queuing up and we're answering, I'm going to jump to a couple of more conspiracy theories that are pretty interesting here to give you even more of a sense of what people are believing. And when I say people, I don't mean one. I don't mean little Timmy in his mom's basement somewhere, a blogger. I mean tens of thousands of people. Again, there is no editor-in-chief of the internet. Therefore, there is no one to say it didn't happen that way. So conspiracy theory number 4 is climate engineering, also known as chemtrails. Chemtrails ghost haunting yet another chamber of our minds, a serious, nefarious set of aerosolized experiments by scientists playing out, twisting clouds to wreak flaming havoc. With climate engineering, some are theorizing that wildfires are a result of climate engineering experiments that have gone wrong, claiming that scientists are manipulating the weather using techniques like geoengineering, which involves injecting substances into the atmosphere to alter weather patterns. True. It's real. But it's not used to make fires. In fact, it's used to try to do the opposite. But conspiracy theorists are pointing to the presence of unusual cloud formations or atmospheric phenomena as evidence of climate engineering. Others are claiming that the wildfires are a result of accidental or intentional manipulation of the weather. Now, we know about geoengineering, chemtrails, whatever. We know that back in the 1970s, and where do we learn this? From the Defense Department itself, from contractors that have had contracts since the 80s to fly stuff around, release it into the air. And once you are a contractor with a large DoD contract, you never want it to go away. And each year you have to do a little more to get a little bit of a budget increase. So there's all this infrastructure. It's kind of like when Donald Trump says he wants to get rid of NATO. So people who don't really understand so well think, oh, I guess he could just stop funding it or just get rid of it. And there it would be gone. No. Want to find out how hard it is to get rid of NATO? Don't look in the usual places. What did we learn from Watergate? It's a historical reference for many of you listening. For some of you, you lived through it. Follow the money. What is NATO? NATO is a series of defense contractors interwoven throughout every country, and not every country, many countries, certainly that are members. And with every NATO country, there are compliance issues. So let's say you have a light bulb in a NATO facility or a NATO partner. That light bulb has to come up to US NATO standards, which means now you might have to have a US company provide that light bulb. And that light bulb is not going away because there may be 10-year contracts to supply light bulbs, flak vests, straws, milk duds, the flat panel TV sets, the wires that connect the TV sets, the junction boxes, the water bubbler, if there is such a thing still in the world left, whatever it is, the beds, the pillows, the stuffing in the pillows. Think of the tens of thousands of giant contracts that are in place so solidly you can't blow up the thing that holds them together because it's never going to happen. But you can politically say you want to get rid of it, and the yeehaws will chew their gum and say, yeah, let's get rid of it. It's bad. Them French and their French fries are sitting around eating our French fries but calling them French. And everyone knows McDonald's invented them. They are American, and the French ain't American. And what else do we hate about the French? Mayonnaise, the devil's lube. It ought not get anywhere near a BLT or anything I'm going to eat because I ain't got enough teeth. And when I get some of that mayonnaise in my gums, it rots, and my breath will knock down 48 women in a row in the grocery store. So I just don't eat mayonnaise. And it goes on forever, doesn't it? It is funny, but it is the United States. So you can't just wipe out NATO because you wish to, but it does work politically. Just like saying you're going to take Canada. Canada is a sovereign nation, by the way. And do you think Chuckles and Camilla are going to go, well, okay, take it, it's yours? No, it's a NATO country. But if you don't know that, it seems reasonable. And it doesn't take much of an argument to rescue Canada from its horrible plight, whatever that is. Like, what is Canada's horrible plight? They're doing extraordinarily well. Yeah, really well. But all you have to do is say, well, if you want to get medical care in Canada, you will have to walk in and wait 3 months to see a doctor. And by the time you get there, they will kick you out and tell you have to wait 3 more months and then raise your taxes 84% to pay for medical care you're never going to get. And when you do get it, it is so bad. They barely have electronics in their communist health care. Wrong. Oh, wrong. In Canada, you pick your own doctor. Unlimited doctor picking, which means the doctor you had as a child is the doctor you have as a grown-up. A doctor who has known you since you were born, maybe pulled you out of I'm cesarean, so carved me out of my mother's belly, along with my twin sister, and would know me all the way up to now, and thereby could predict what's going on. You have that choice in Canada. You don't have that choice in the United States, and we're dealing with a situation where now they want to get rid of Obamacare, which is the only infrastructure we have to ensure that there is some kind of accountability in the medical system, including subsidies, because only in the United States, ask a European. Do you know that tourism to the United States right now is super low? Why? Well, for the political climate, but it is unaffordable if something happens to you here, like let's say you want to go to the Grand Canyon. Who doesn't? I mean, you're a European. Where are you going to go? The Grand Canyon. See the Hollywood sign. New York City, Miami, whatever people do that are those cool photos that they take back and they visited the United States. You go to the Grand Canyon, you twist your ankle. Okay, not a problem. In Europe, you go, legacy smoke. Yep, we're all eyewitness to that, and so are you, I'm sure. And maybe we'll get to hear that. But we're going to jump to the phones in just a second. We do have some technical issues with the phones. They're working on it right now. Hopefully, it will get resolved. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, because I want to hear what you're hearing about conspiracy theories and such. When you go to, if you're a European, you have a twisted ankle, you go into the ER, they fix it, you get a bill for 0 cents, €0, zero anything. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. State-of-the-art medical care. You get a twisted ankle here, you are not an American, which means you don't have medical insurance of any kind. You go into the ER and the meter is running. You're now paying for the hotel, the hospital. It is a hotel. It has beds. It has amenities. It has food. It has this. You're paying for that. You're paying for every single nurse. You're paying for every single doctor, every single consult. Then the doctor has to look at the x-rays. The x-ray technician has to get paid. The actual x-rays have to get paid for. The CD-ROM, which they still use for MRIs, you have to pay for that. So that's another $1,500. There's this, there's that. There's every aspirin. There's every phone call. Then there's the administrative fees and the cost of putting together your bill for somebody from another country. And you end up being presented a bill for a sprained ankle. It could be $15,000. And you laugh and say, oh, please. And then you go to the airport. You're ready to go on your flight because you're not going to pay that. And you get to passport control. And guess what? You can't leave. You can't leave. You owe $15,000. And of course, it's flagged immediately because you're visiting the United States. You don't live here. It's pegged to the fact that you're a foreigner visiting here and you could split owing 15 grand. And passport control doesn't care who is owed, whether it's a car dealership or whatever. It's you've basically stolen $15,000. You are now technically a thief. Yes. So you can be held. And I have talked to a double gold Olympic medalist who got a head cold that cost him $5 grand when he went into the ER just to get an antibiotic. And he didn't pay it because he's like, you've got to be kidding. In Europe, it would be free or 3 cents. And I mean, come on, seriously. And he went to leave. This is an Olympiad, 2 gold medals. And of course, they view him as a thief. He has stolen $5,000 from the hospital, and they won't let him leave until he pays it off. And he has to go back to New York City, find some rich people that support the Olympics who paid his bill so that he could leave. This is going to go away. Obamacare. This is going to go away. And I don't know if you've seen it or not, but sitting in the Supreme Court today is the most ridiculous argument for getting rid of health care in the United States you could ever imagine. The gays are behind it, behind the problems in health care. That Obamacare is creating homosexuality. I swear it is sitting in the Supreme Court right now. If they say, well, it's true, and therefore we have to get rid of Obamacare, and that will stop the spread, it's so ridiculous. Now, maybe you're straight, likely so, numerically, but you don't actually wake up in the morning and decide to be straight. You don't give it a second thought. It's not a thing that you ever have to deal with. So if it'd be the same thing as if the Supreme Court declared that overweight heterosexual men are causing the downfall or are somehow, no, it's a bad analogy, isn't it? It's totally not a good one, but I think you get my point. It's like it has nothing to do with it, but they are so hell-bent on destroying your healthcare, whoever you are, that they're saying that a pill that some gay people take so they don't get HIV, not you do have it, it's medication to continue to stay alive and healthy with HIV. It's to not get it. It's birth control. As women take a birth control pill to not become pregnant, there is now a birth control pill, call it that, for people that have sex so they don't get HIV, whoever they may be. But they're saying that that pill is spreading homosexuality. So, and trust me, Gilead Pharmaceuticals is a fundamentalist Christian organization. They are hardly creating those pills to have more homosexuality and not even to make more customers. They're not thrilled. They just happen to make that medication. So it's ridiculous, but this is what's going on right now. And this is the part that's so troubling, is they're coming in from angles with uneducated people that live on the internet, that don't read the newspaper anymore. Not their fault. There really aren't newspapers. They're like pamphlets now, right? The newspapers have fired all of their staff, the people that used to get full-time salaries, investigative reporters that would tell you what was in the drinking water, what was really in the air, who was doing what, who was getting paid to do this and that and the other. Again, unraveling real conspiracies, because people do conspire. AT&T does get in a boardroom and conspires to go against T-Mobile. It's not illegal. It's not unlawful. They just conspire. Let's get together. Let's come up with a marketing plan and make them look bad. It's classic radio behavior. Back when there used to be competitive commercial radio, we would always go after each other. Remember when I was starting in radio, and this was on a rock station. We would, not me, but we would send interns out to go through the garbage of the competing radio station. Then we would read their emails and letters on the air. It was hysterically funny, but boy, did it have an effect. This is conspiratorial behavior in many ways, the behavior of companies against other behaviors. And so the legacy news used to have full-time people that were there to tell you what you could not see with your own eyes, what you had no access to with your own senses, in your own capacity, even through your own phones, your ability to write a congressman. I mean, you're limited. Most people are very limited. If you have an organization that's a media organization that's in the business of journalism, their whole job is to have access, to get into the government, to get into the tendrils, to know people, to find out who's doing what, where, and when, and then report that back to you for your health and well-being. That is the job of the media. When you fire all of those people because it's not profitable, that's why you do it. They're great people, but it's not profitable. I mean, think about it. You're paying a journalist like $80,000 a year plus 401k benefits, whatever else comes along with that. All of that completely removed. You make everyone freelance, just like commercial radio. You fire all the employees, and then everyone becomes freelance, use them for an hour or two, and the rest of it is now, in commercial radio, AI. You've got like 10 full-time people syndicated. The rest of it is a computer that has recorded their voice. It's AI. They drop it in with the call letters, even the time, the weather, all of it. It costs nothing. So the profits keep funneling to the top. And here we are in these pharaonic times where it's pharaohs and slaves and not a ton in the middle. So we're faced with now an administration that believes that is the best way and that it will somehow reboot, rebirth, and re-energize America back to the 1890s when 90% of us were farmers and 10% of us worked in companies. So let's just go back to you basically, I don't know that you'd be allowed to grow your own vegetables, but you'd be doing the job that the dreaded Mexican is supposed to be booted out to do. That's the plan here. And that is the plan. It's published in Project 2025. It's been acknowledged. It's been celebrated, supported by everyone at the top. And we are seeing literally those right people being put into position. So how do you cure that? That's going to probably be the next big question. What is the workaround as long as the freedom of speech, which we still enjoy as of today? Next week, it may look a little different. We may have to start talking like East Germans in the 1960s using code, or in the Soviet system, where you get punished for actually saying stuff unless it is the right stuff to say. So we're facing all kinds of mayhem and madness and nonsense. And so I want you to be acutely aware of critical thinking. I want you to be acutely aware of messaging, of propaganda, and how there is no editor-in-chief of the internet. And for some of us, this is first-time news. My grandmother at 90-something, this was a few years ago, remember we were having lunch, and she leaned forward to me. She put her fork down, and she had her hand around her water glass. She pulled her glasses down to the end of her nose, and she whispered this to me. She was ashamed. She said, "What's the internet?" Well, it's a reasonable question. When you're 90, you hear it talked about all the time, like you hear about AI all the time. But until somebody really explains to you what is the internet, You don't know. You just know it's out there. It's where everyone goes. You do this, you do that, but you really don't know what it is. So I brought her up to speed, but I said, it's not like TV, where at least there's a program director on TV. There's an editor in chief or an assignment editor in the TV news. There's somebody whose ass is on the fire if they really do something bad. On the internet, there is no such thing. You can do anything you want as long as it looks legitimate. And that's the key. Look at Canva. Look at any of these. Just genius. 99 bucks a year memberships. And I mean, the templates for everything are what would have cost you 80 grand on Madison Avenue for a single campaign, even 10 years ago. You can now do anything that the finest minds, the greatest artists in the world that draw movie posters, you can have AI do something almost as good as somebody with true talent who has spent decades honing and refining their exquisite ability to create a movie poster. I mean, you look at that, that's as good as any of the great masters. I realize that sounds vulgar to some people, but it really is true. Just like a great film score. And look at where film scores evolved from, right? We go back to Mahler, who was his student. You know, we find out that the great masters of the 1930s, when they scored King Kong or Gone with the Wind, these guys all were classical musicians studying classical music with real classical composers as their teachers. So it's very sophisticated stuff, and it can move you at its core. AI can now replicate all of that. But if you don't really know what AI is or where it's going, you can't really work with it. Just like if you don't realize how conspiracy theories work and how the internet works and how it's open season, and while it looks like it's completely controlled because it looks legitimate, it makes it even less legitimate in many ways because it is the perfect exercise of propaganda. It is Huxley and Orwell played out for real, finally. This cognitive dissonance of a government built to get rid of government, but to make it bigger at the same time by creating a whole new branch of government to get rid of the government that will replace getting rid of the government with an even bigger government. Wow. Okay. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today and letting me get all of this off my chest. I say what a lot of people are thinking. I hear from you all the time. You send me emails. I apologize if I can't get to all of them. I try to. Please get the newsletter. I'm going to post all of this along with all these conspiracy theories. Go to rethinkingheroes.com, rethinkingheroes.com. It's for free and for fun. Go to YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel so that we can keep connected. And if there is any issue going on, we will have a way to communicate with you, okay? Thank you so much for listening. I love you. I feel the affection back. We are one human family here in Los Angeles, 10 million, 14 million of us in the larger DMA. And we are one human family, and we now have evidence of that. Let's rebuild together, bigger, better, smarter, and help each other and keep things accountable. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes.
We are in complete control. Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.